Hi, everyone. Welcome to your latest Glass Half Full with Ryan and Sonu. As always, Sonu, there's a big IPO coming out, SpaceX, and everybody's talking about it. Everyone wonders what exactly does it mean. That's what we're going to talk about this week in SpaceX IPO, all about the future. So let's start high level.
Actually, should we do a quick compliance note here first? Like, we're going to mention a few names, not a
Yeah,
recommendation to buy any of these,
it's
nor
true.
SpaceX or anything like that.
It's
Just
true.
to
Well,
have that.
you can't even buy SpaceX yet.
Yes,
But
yes,
the other
technically,
names we might mention, not a recommendation. So an
yes.
IPO is an initial public offering, right? SpaceX is a private company, and sometime over the next couple of weeks in June, they will become a public company. So it's estimated they might be a $2 trillion market cap at the IPO, which would be the largest IPO in the history of the world, breaking Saudi Aramco. What was it, like 1.4 billion, I believe?
I think in terms of billion, it was
Yeah.
like 26.
Or trillion.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So something like that. And
Yeah.
that was back in 2019, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
bottom line, it's a big deal. I will say, so SpaceX does a lot of things, gets people to space. That's what the goals obviously is, but they have Starlink. And Starlink, if you fly on certain airlines, Starlink is amazing. So I will just say right away, you might be using SpaceX, not even realize it if you're on an airplane and your internet works really well. Some airlines don't work well anymore. I literally take the airlines I know have Starlink because it is incredible how well
Yeah.
that works. But how do we want to start this? How excited are you? Excited about it? What are your thoughts on this big IPO coming out here in a couple weeks?
I feel like it fits into the theme of what's been happening already. We have
Hmm.
a lot of momentum in the market. The S&P 500 is hitting new highs probably as we speak
Yeah,
here.
every day.
Every
Yeah,
day the
it
Dow is
feels like.
above 50,000, the Nasdaq's going crazy. We have a lot of momentum. And as we've
Mhm.
talked about before, momentum begets momentum. A lot of that momentum is coming from the AI side. The AI, stuff is also about the future.
Yep.
Nvidia came out last week with earnings. The market's a little underwhelmed with Nvidia's going by stock market's reaction, but Nvidia's still up, I don't know, 19-20% year to date. But
Mhm.
look, Nvidia last quarter generated about, what was it? $82 billion revenue,
Mhm.
new record, right? That was
Yeah.
above expectations. I'm looking at my screen, 79 billion.
Mm.
That's up 20%, Ryan, from Q4, the
Wow.
previous quarter. It's up 85% from a year ago. A year ago, Nvidia is making 44 billion in revenue. Now they're at 82 billion. A big chunk of their revenue is coming from data centers, obviously.
Yes.
And Elon Musk has talked about putting data centers up in space. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you be excited about space and anything related to space?
And there are some other publicly traded space and rocket companies. We won't really mention them on this call, but they have been very, very hot. Again, excitement over the future, all about the future and this big IPO. Now, a couple things about SpaceX. The company lost nearly $5 billion last year. Now, again, it's all about the future. And Amazon lost a lot of money for a very long time, also. Now, they almost did it on purpose. They took money and they reinvested and did certain things. They could have been profitable sooner if they wanted, but it all worked out. I guess the thing that worries potential old timers like myself and maybe you and some others listening, we remember 99. In 99, a
Mhm.
lot of big companies, we were told back then. I mean, I probably can mention these like Sycamore Networks, Juniper Networks. I don't think they
Yeah.
exist anymore. Okay. Sienna Networks, all these network companies, they weren't making money either. But everyone said how great it was going to be, how they're going to make endless money. These companies had huge valuations. They went up a whole bunch. CNBC, everyone celebrated it. And then the bubble came soon after these major IPOs, bubble burst, I should say. After these major IPOs, we have SpaceX, we have Anthropic, we have other big IPOs likely coming later this year. I'm not saying it's deja vu all over again, to quote Yogi Berra, but that catches my attention. When you hear a company, Sony, losing $5 billion is going public and everybody's excited, I don't know. Tell me where I'm wrong here.
No, I think the worry is there. You have to, and especially when momentum's doing as well as it has, right? I mean,
Mhm.
here, when I say momentum, I'm referring to a particular set of stocks that exhibit
Yep.
momentum. There are ways to measure that. And right now, these stocks are screaming ahead. Now, I would argue on the other side that so far, a lot of the companies that are doing really well in terms of the stock market, in terms
Yeah.
of stock prices, whether it's Nvidias of the world, or even Micron technology, right? Very
Mhm.
tied into memory chips, which are needed for data centers. It's up 214% year to date. Again, not a recommendation to buy this, but there's a story here. And the story so far, set aside SpaceX for a moment, most of the stocks exhibiting momentum, stock prices are going up on the back of profit growth.
Right.
We've talked about that. You get enormous profit growth. Now, the other side of that is also inflation, whether it's tech companies. Now you have energy and materials companies as well. Now, that's a function of what's happening in the Middle East. The war hasn't ended, the stalemate there. There's no deal yet. But you have this look into the future thing happening with AI. And a lot of it has been based on profitability. And this is where I think SpaceX sort of stands out. Because as you said, they've lost 5 billion. They're not generating profits. So in the case of SpaceX, it literally is being optimistic about the future.
No, absolutely. Just some other things coming in my head here when we do all this. We wrapped up an incredible earnings season, right? S&P 500 earnings up almost 28% year over year in the first quarter. This time 6 weeks ago, expected to be up about 13%. 84% of companies beat on earnings, 81% beat on revenue, both well above the 5 and 10-year averages. So the reality is earnings are strong. And I love what you pointed out because it's true. You look at Nvidia, look at Micron. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head here, but you look at their forward PE multiples, by no means are they stretched. These companies are up a whole bunch, but you know what? The last 2 to 3 years, they've made a whole lot of money. So in a way, you could say that is justified. Let's see here.
Actually,
Where
one
else
more
want to
thing
take
on
this?
the earnings.
Go ahead.
As you mentioned, last quarter earnings are up about 28%. That is huge.
Oh, yeah.
That
Good
was
point.
16%. The average earnings surprise was about 16%, which what does that mean? Analysts had estimated S&P 500 earnings to come in at 11% year over year growth. Instead, we saw 27%, right? That is massive. Now, a big chunk of it, and this gets to part of what's happening. Normally, you think, okay, there's the public markets, there's the private markets. The private market is where SpaceX is right now. It's coming into the public side with the IPO, but there are other private firms, Anthropics and OpenAIs of the world.
Right.
The OpenAI is the one that owns ChatGPT. Anthropic is the one behind cloud, and these are all private. Normally, you think, oh, I don't have access to that. But a lot of big hyperscale, mega cap tech companies, Nvidia's, Microsoft, Google's, Amazon's of the world, own stakes in these companies. And these stakes are being valued at a much higher value. And that's showing up in the earnings for public companies. So right now, what you're seeing in public markets with these stocks doing well, part of that is a reflection of what's also happening in the private market.
Yeah, one of the top questions we've received on the Carson team, I'd say the last month or so, is how can I get in on the SpaceX IPO? Everybody wants to know. And what you're saying is, listen, if you own a basket of tech stocks, you own the NASDAQ 100 potentially. I mean,
if
have
you
some
own the
exposure.
S&P 500, 8% is 7-8% is Nvidia. 5% is Google. You have a whole bunch in Microsoft, another 6%, and they all own OpenAI and Anthropic.
And last I checked, Tesla is owned by Elon Musk. Elon Musk owns SpaceX. So there's a lot of potential similarities there as well. One other thing that I think is kind of interesting about earnings. So we said, okay, up 28% year over year. The Mag 7. So again, some of those big 7 names that you just kind of mentioned, big tech leaders, up about 63%. Just incredible earnings growth at a Mag 7. So that means the 493 means everybody else. Sonu's still up almost 17%, over 17%. So it's not like just a couple companies. Yes, some of these companies are up a lot more. Some of these companies are growing faster, but it's not just a market being led by a couple stocks. It is a broad-based rally, and it's a broad-based earnings, I would say, explosion. When you look at the 493, still up over 17%, that's a positive thing. You always have winners and losers every earnings season. Certain stocks are going to do well. Certain stocks are going to do poorly. That's how it goes. That's just free markets. But overall, it's a really positive, I think, fundamental backdrop being led by earnings and record highs in profit margins. Ready to wrap this up, Sonu? How do we want to finish up this conversation on the SpaceX IPO and all the cool stuff happening out there?
Look, we are living in a moment right now, right? There's a new technological revolution happening. You want to ride that wave, to use a quote we used in our outlook, our full year outlook. But this is when, certain things can look a little stretched. Be careful out there. Have a diversified portfolio. Avoid a wipeout.
Well said. I was going to go along those lines too. Listen, We want to own the stuff that's up the most. It's how our brains are wired. Just be careful there. Work with a financial advisor. Be careful to buy the shiny stuff, because maybe the stuff that's lagged is going to do well over the next year. That's kind of how this works. So we're not saying outright avoid technology or some of these high flyers, but just remember there's some other more beaten up stuff that honestly might do just fine if you keep that diversified portfolio. We'd say probably still stay a little overweight equities. We still think we're in a bull market. You're going to do just fine, and you're going to benefit from these waves that we continue to see pushing, honestly, this bull market higher and higher. Feels like every day we're hitting new highs. One fun one, I'll leave on this. A fun one, I think it's fun. May 26th, which just happened a couple days ago, May 26th, 1896, the Dow Jones Industrial Average started trading at $40.96. Sonu, like you just said, closed on May 26th, 2026. So my math is right. That's 130 years later, up over 50,000. All right.
Wow.
A lot of good stuff's happened, and honestly, some bad stuff's happened. But one of the things that we've seen throughout history is the stock market tends to go higher over time, and there will be bad headlines. There will be scary headlines. There will be bad days, bad months. There will be bubbles. There will be this. There will be that. But longer-term investors continue to be rewarded, and we don't think that's going to change anytime the remainder of any lifetime of anyone listen to this. So look to the long term, but enjoy the short term as well, because it's going to be a little bumpy with some of these rallies we've had, but we're still pretty optimistic. With all that, everybody, buckle up for that SpaceX IPO. It's coming out real soon. We'll see you right next week. Take care. Thank you.